You didn't find this video. It found you, because somewhere between your heartbreak and the silence you've been living in, Allah saw your soul begging for a sign. And this is it. 1. The calm that came out of nowhere wasn't random. Do you remember that night? That one night where you didn't even recognize yourself anymore. You weren't crying loudly. You weren't screaming. You were just silent. Your body was still, but inside, it felt like your soul was breaking into 100 pieces. Your chest was tight. You felt a pressure you couldn't explain. Not physical, not even emotional. It was something deeper, something no doctor could treat. You stared at the ceiling. Maybe the lights were off. Maybe the fan was spinning above you. But everything felt dark. Not outside, inside. You didn't know how to put it into words. So you didn't. You just laid there, quietly drowning in your own heart. You thought of the mistakes you made, the people you hurt, the people who hurt you, the choices you regret, the pain you wish you could erase. And your thoughts wouldn't stop, one after another, each one heavier than the last. You thought, I can't do this anymore. I'm tired. Why does no one see what I'm going through? Why does Allah feel so far right now? And then, suddenly, something changed. It didn't make sense. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't a miracle. It was just stillness. Your chest slowly loosened. Your hands stopped shaking. Your mind, after racing all night, finally began to slow down. It didn't fix everything. It didn't bring answers. But it gave you something priceless in that moment. Peace. Just enough peace to breathe again. Just enough stillness to keep going. Just enough mercy to stop the storm inside. And here's what you didn't know. That wasn't just your body relaxing. It wasn't your mind finally getting over it. It wasn't sleep coming in to save you. No, that was Allah. That was the one who created your heart, whispering back into it without a sound. It was His Sakina, a divine calmness that He sends, not to your body, but straight to your soul, because He knew you couldn't take any more that night. He saw you break. He saw you suffocating silently. He saw the thoughts that scared even you. And He didn't shout at you. He didn't punish you. He didn't lecture you. He just calmed you. He reached into the chaos of your chest and placed something in it that even you couldn't describe. A moment of relief. A moment of gentleness. A moment where for the first time in hours, you felt like maybe you'd survive this. And here's the part that breaks the heart the most. You didn't even realize it. You didn't say Alhamdulillah in that moment. You didn't know it came from Him. You didn't even thank Him, because you thought it was just you, finally settling down. But He didn't mind, because when Allah loves you, He doesn't need your gratitude before He gives you comfort. He just gives. He just heals. He just responds, even when you don't realize He's the one doing it. That moment, that sudden stillness, that breath you didn't think you could take, that tear that fell when you thought you couldn't cry anymore, that strange, quiet peace in the middle of your panic, that wasn't random. That wasn't luck. That wasn't coincidence. That was love. That was mercy. That was a sign. And you didn't even know it. But Allah did. And that's all that matters. Because no one saw how close you were to breaking that night. But He did. And He answered it. Not with words, but with presence. That was the proof you've been waiting for. That even in your weakest moment, He never left. And He never will. 2. When life got harder after dua, that was divine strategy. You made dua, maybe for healing, maybe for peace, maybe for a new beginning. And you were sincere. Your voice trembled. Your hands shook in the air. Your heart was fully present, and your eyes were full of hope. You believed. You believed that if anyone could answer it was Allah. So you waited. But instead of things getting easier, they got worse. The people you asked Allah to protect betrayed you. The heart you asked Him to heal shattered more. The doors you asked Him to open slammed in your face. And suddenly, your soul felt confused. You said, "Ya Allah, I asked you for peace. Why did you give me more pain? Ya Allah, I begged you to make it better. Why does it feel worse?" And deep down, a quiet fear began to grow. Maybe He didn't hear me. Maybe I wasn't worthy. Maybe I did something wrong. But the truth is, none of those thoughts were true, because what you didn't see was this: Allah did hear you. Allah did love your dua. Allah did start answering the moment your hands went up. But His answer didn't come in comfort. It came in chaos. Because sometimes, before Allah gives you what you asked for, He clears away what you didn't realize was blocking it. And that clearing, it can feel like destruction. You asked for peace, so He removed people that were disturbing your soul if you loved them. You asked for strength, so He allowed you to fall so your legs would learn to stand without depending on others. You asked for clarity, so He let the illusions fall apart so you could finally see what was real. You asked for love, so He made you feel unloved so you would come back to His love first. You asked for growth, so He planted you in darkness because flowers don't bloom in sunlight alone. They need rain. They need time. They need pressure beneath the soil before they rise. But it hurts, doesn't it? When the dua you made with so much hope feels like it opened the door to more tears. You expected a straight path. Instead, you got a painful detour. But what if I told you the pain was the path? The detour was the direction. The delay was the preparation. The confusion was the clearing. The heartbreak was the healing. Allah didn't abandon you. He rerouted you. Because what you asked for was beautiful, but where you were standing wasn't the place to receive it. So He moved you. And the movement felt like pain, but it was love in disguise. Because only the one who knows your unseen future knows what needs to break now to protect what's coming next. You thought it was rejection, but it was divine redirection. You thought it was punishment, but it was surgical mercy cutting away what couldn't stay. You thought it was silence, but it was strategy. The kind of strategy only a Lord who loves you deeply could design. Because if He gave you ease immediately, you might have stayed in a place that slowly killed your soul. So He let it get louder. He let it fall apart. He let it shake you, to wake you, because your dua wasn't ignored. It was answered in a way your limited heart didn't recognize yet. It was answered by moving everything that didn't match the prayer you made. And that takes time. Sometimes days, sometimes months, sometimes years. But it's moving, it's shifting, and when the dust settles, you'll look back and realize everything that got harder after your dua was part of the miracle. Because Allah doesn't just give what you ask for, He reshapes your life so that when it arrives, you're ready for it. And that reshaping, that storm, that heartbreak, wasn't cruelty. It was divine love with surgical precision. That was a sign, and you didn't even know it. 3. When you hated the sin you couldn't escape, That was love in disguise. You didn't want to fall again. You promised yourself. You made wudu. You even cried the last time you did it. You thought, this is the last time. But it wasn't. It happened again. The same sin, the same regret, the same pain, echoing through your chest. After it's done, and this time the guilt felt worse. You sat there, head low, unable to even raise your hands. How can I return to Allah after this? Isn't He tired of me by now? What's the point of saying sorry if I'll fall again? And in that moment, you didn't just hate the sin. You hated yourself. You hated how weak you felt. You hated that you couldn't stop. You hated the version of you that no one else sees, the one that keeps collapsing in secret. And it's therein, that exact moment of disgust and brokenness, that something sacred is happening. Not visible to you, not loud, but real. It's the love of Allah, still surrounding you. Because here's the truth, nobody tells you. If Allah wanted to leave you, He would have left your heart hard. He would have let the sin feel easy. He would have let you laugh afterward. He would have removed the guilt. But He didn't. He kept your soul sensitive. He kept your chest heavy. He let you cry even when you didn't think you could. Because your guilt, your pain, that ache that shows up the moment it's over, that's mercy. You think you're far from Allah, but that feeling inside, that pain, it's Him still tugging at your soul, still calling you back, still protecting your heart from becoming cold. You didn't notice it. You called it shame. You called it failure. But it was proof that He hasn't let go. Because if He let go, you'd feel nothing. And you'd return again and again, without tears, without sadness, without any fear of losing Him. But you're scared. And that fear, that's Iman. That's belief still alive inside you. Yes, it's bruised. Yes, it's tired. Yes, it's weak right now. But it's there. And it's speaking through your guilt. That's not weakness. That's not hypocrisy. That's proof your heart still belongs to Him, even if your actions sometimes wander. And the more you fight that sin, even when you fall, even when you feel you're losing, the more you are being trained to return. Allah loves those who return. He didn't say, those who never sin. He said, indeed, Allah loves those who constantly repent. Surah Al-Baqarah 2:222. Constantly. That means again, and again, and again, even after 100 falls, even when the people around you give up on you, even when you give up on yourself. As long as your heart turns back, as long as you say, Ya Allah, I'm sorry, as long as the sin still makes you cry, you are still His. Let that sink in, because one of the greatest tricks of Shaitan isn't just getting you to fall. It's convincing you that after the fall, there's no way back. But there is, and you've been walking it all along. Every tear you shed after the sin was a step closer. Every time you said Astaghfirullah with a shaking voice, the angels recorded it with honor. Every time you collapsed into sajda in shame, the earth carried your apology back to its creator. You may think, but I'm such a disappointment. But do you know something? Disappointed hearts are some of the closest to Allah, because they don't come to Him with arrogance. They don't come pretending. They come broken, with sincerity no one else sees. And that sincerity, that's what Allah loves more than perfection. You're not stuck in the sin because Allah is punishing you. You're stuck because He's still teaching you something. Maybe He's showing you how weak you are. so you finally surrender fully. Maybe he's showing you how empty the sin is. So your soul finally begs to be filled with something real. Maybe he's breaking the pride you once had, so that when you rise humbler, softer, closer. Maybe this battle is the very thing that will make you more beloved to Allah than anything else you've done in life. Because who else cries like you do after falling? Who else whispers, "Forgive me," when their voice is shaking from shame? Who else begs not for paradise, but just for one more chance? You think that's weakness, but Allah sees that as love. And one day, you'll win this war. One day, you'll look at that sin and say, "It doesn't control me anymore." One day, you'll realize you haven't fallen in weeks, then months, then years. One day, you'll help someone else escape it because you understand the prison better than anyone. And when that day comes, you'll look back and realize that all those tears, all that shame, all that heartbreak, wasn't Allah turning away from you. It was Allah never letting you forget Him, even inside the sin. That wasn't rejection. It was training. It was purification. It was love. You just didn't know it. But now, you do. That sin you hate, that struggle you hide, that guilt that haunts you, that's the very place where Allah is showing you how much He still wants you. That was a sign, and you didn't even know it. 4. When you chose silence over revenge, heaven was watching. You could have exposed them. You knew what they did. You knew the truth. You knew the things that would have shattered their reputation if you just spoke. And people told you, say something, defend yourself. Don't let them get away with it. But you didn't. Not because you didn't have proof. Not because you didn't have pain. But because something inside you whispered, "Let Allah speak for me." And you stayed silent. Not out of fear. Not out of weakness. But because your soul had seen enough to know that sometimes the loudest power is quiet. And yet, your silence didn't feel noble. It didn't feel powerful. It felt like being invisible. You walked away with wounds no one clapped for. You cried in rooms no one even knew you were in. You replayed conversations, arguments, accusations, and swallowed them whole. And what hurt the most was that no one said, "You did the right thing." No one acknowledged what it cost you to stay silent. No one saw the battle behind your calm. No one knew that the reason you didn't defend yourself wasn't because you had nothing to say. It's because you chose not to lose your soul while trying to win the world. But while the world didn't see it, heaven did. The angels did. Allah did. He saw your tongue tremble with words you wanted to spit out, but didn't. He saw your ego screaming to fight back, but you chained it down. He saw the moment you chose to walk away with your dignity instead of stay and lose it. That was not silence. That was spiritual strength. Because anybody can shout. Anybody can post. Anybody can curse, expose, and try to destroy someone. But only the ones who fear Allah more than they fear being misunderstood can stay silent for His sake. And you did that, even though it tore you apart, even though it made people question you, even though it made you feel like you lost. But here's the part you didn't see. You never lost, because your silence, it traveled higher than their words ever could. It was recorded by angels. It was witnessed by the most just. It was stored in a place far beyond this world. And one day, on a day where no voice will matter but His, your silence will speak for you. The day when Allah will ask you about that moment, not to punish you, but to reward you for the pain you swallowed in His name. The tears you cried on your prayer mat, they weren't wasted. They were received. He saw how hard it was for you to keep quiet. He saw the insults. He saw the betrayal. He saw the pressure. He saw the slander. And he saw you, choosing him. You said nothing, because you knew he sees everything. And that kind of faith, that kind of restraint, it's not weakness, it's worship. The Prophet ﷺ once said, "I guarantee a house in the surroundings of paradise for the one who leaves arguments, even if they are right." Tirmidhi, you were right, but you left the fight. You left the war. You left the spotlight. And Allah promised you a home in Jannah for that silence. You gave up revenge, but He promised you a reward that will never end. Because, in the moment of conflict, you didn't just stay silent. You submitted. You said, "Ya Allah, you fight for me, you speak for me, you are enough." And He was. Even if justice didn't come in the form you wanted, even if the people never apologized, even if they never got exposed, even if no one said, "You were right," Allah already knew you were. And He's not just watching, He's preparing something. Something bigger than revenge. Something purer than ego. Something sweeter than being proven right. He's preparing closure that doesn't need noise. Victory that doesn't need an audience. Peace that doesn't come from people but from Him. You didn't stay silent because you were weak. You stayed silent because you were strong enough to let Allah finish the story. And one day, when you're standing in a place so beautiful it makes this world feel like a dream, you'll remember the moment you walked away with tears in your eyes. You'll remember the pain. You'll remember the pressure. And then you'll hear, "This is your reward. For trusting me when no one else understood. For letting me defend you when you could have defended yourself." You'll realize that silence, that moment, that pain was a sign that you were being watched, that you were being written, that you were being rewarded. Even when no one on earth clapped, heaven stood still for you. And you didn't even know it. 5. When the world left you alone, Allah was pulling you closer. You didn't expect the silence. You didn't expect the distance. You didn't expect the calls to stop. You didn't expect the people you loved to disappear. It started slowly. One friend stopped replying. Another one grew cold. And then the circle got smaller, until it felt like there was no circle at all. You kept asking yourself, "What did I do wrong? Why do they always leave? Am I that forgettable?" And maybe you weren't perfect, but the way they left, so suddenly, so easily, without closure, without explanation, it left a wound, a quiet one that didn't bleed on the outside, but kept pulsing inside your chest at night. You became the one who gives everything to everyone, and then watches everyone give nothing in return. And when it finally broke you, you isolated, not by choice, but by reality, and you called it abandonment. But what if I told you it wasn't? What if I told you that the loneliness that you think is breaking you is actually the moment Allah has finally brought you to Himself? Because here's a truth your heart has been dying to hear. When Allah loves someone, He doesn't always add people. Sometimes He subtracts. He removes the voices that distract you. He clears out the ones who keep hurting you. He allows the fake ones to walk away without goodbye, so that your heart finally learns. He's the only one who was never temporary. You felt alone, but that space wasn't empty. It was sacred. It was the space where your soul could finally breathe without pretending, where your heart could cry without being judged, where your thoughts could whisper, "Ya Allah," without interruption. That wasn't loneliness. That was intimacy. It was Allah pulling you into a place where no one else could sit, a place only you and Him could exist in, and you thought He forgot you. He was the one who cleared the room, so He could finally be heard. Because sometimes, when your life is filled with people, your heart gets filled with noise. Noise that blocks the whispers of your soul. Noise that distracts you from the one who never stopped being there. And when He loves you, He doesn't fight the noise. He removes it, even if that means pulling you away from the people you thought were permanent. Even if that means letting you sit alone while everyone else seems surrounded. Even if that means letting the silence grow so deep, you finally hear what was buried under the surface all along. Ya Allah, it's just me and you now. That whisper, that cry, that tear, it wasn't weakness. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't abandonment. It was arrival. You finally arrived at the place He's been waiting to meet you. Not in the crowd, not in the noise, not when you were full of people and distractions, but now, in this quiet, in this stillness, in this version of you that's tired, confused, aching, but finally real. You see, the people didn't leave because you weren't worthy. They left because Allah loved you too much to let you keep depending on what wasn't designed to carry your soul. They left because He wanted you to stop seeking love that had an expiration date. He wanted you to see the difference between those who liked your presence and the one who authored your presence. And the moment you saw that was the moment you stopped saying, "Why did they leave?" and started whispering, "Ya Allah, thank you for staying." Because here's the secret. Your soul didn't die in the loneliness. It was born there. It was in the silence that you finally heard your dua, not just with your mouth, but with your entire being. It was in the isolation that you finally reached sujood, not just with your forehead, but with your whole heart. It was in the empty rooms that you finally realized Allah never left. You just never noticed how close He was until everyone else was gone. That's not abandonment. That's divine mercy. That's love, the kind that rearranges your life just to bring you home. And when you look back, maybe months from now, or years, you'll remember the night you cried thinking no one cared. You'll remember the tears you wiped quietly under your blanket. You'll remember that ache of feeling forgotten. And then you'll smile. Not because it didn't hurt, but because now you see what it really was. It wasn't the world rejecting you. It was Allah selecting you, pulling you closer, silently, gently, intentionally. So the next time you feel alone, the next time the room gets too quiet, the next time you wonder where everyone went, remember this. You weren't left behind. You were brought forward to a conversation that no one else was invited to. That moment, that silence, that night you thought was the worst of your life, that was a sign that Allah wanted your full attention. And now He has it. You just didn't know it at the time. But now, you do. 6. When you had no words in sujood, but still cried, that was intimacy. You didn't have the words. You made wudu. You laid the prayer mat. You faced the Qibla. And you whispered, Allahu Akbar. But inside, your chest was full of noise. Your mind was tired. Your soul felt heavy. So heavy that even thinking of what to ask felt like too much. You went into sajda. Not with a long dua, not with a list of hopes, but with just one offering, your silence, and maybe a tear, or two, or many. You stayed there, forehead pressed to the earth, heart breaking open without language, and you thought to yourself, what's the point? I can't even speak. I don't even know what I need anymore. Maybe this isn't even a real dua. But you were wrong. Because what you didn't know is that your silence in sujood was louder in the heavens than 1,000 perfectly crafted prayers. Your silence had weight. Because when you reach the point where you can't even form words, that's not nothing. That's everything. That's when the pain has reached the heart so deeply that only Allah can read it. And He does. He always does. You see, dua isn't about eloquence. It's not about quoting Quranic verses. It's not about how poetic you sound. It's not about crying in perfect Arabic or whispering in flawless phrases. Dua is surrender. And nothing surrenders like silence that cries through tears. When your forehead touches the ground and your heart is too shattered to speak, that's not a failure. That's arrival. You've arrived at the door of the most merciful. You've arrived at the point where the dunya has no answers left for you. You've arrived at the moment where the soul finally says, Ya Allah, I have nothing left but you. And that's when your prayer becomes something no angel can fully write down. Because it's not just a request. It's a moment of connection. A sacred meeting between your brokenness and His mercy. And here's what will break your heart even more. The Prophet ﷺ said, the closest a servant is to their Lord is when they are in sujood. Muslim, not when you're speaking, not when you're making dua, not even when you're reciting Quran, but when your face is pressed to the ground and you say, nothing. Because it's not about what comes out of your mouth. It's about what's coming out of your soul. And sometimes, the most honest prayer is the tear that drops with no words at all. Do you know how precious that moment is? That while the world spins loudly around you, you stopped, you bowed, you collapsed, and gave Allah your silence. You didn't post about it. You didn't tell anyone. No one saw it. No one clapped. But the one who created your soul, He was watching. He was listening. He was closer to you in that moment than your own thoughts. And you didn't even realize it. Because that silence, that tear, that whisper in your heart that didn't become a sentence, it was heard. It was answered. It was written. It was loved. You thought you weren't saying anything, but your soul was screaming, Ya Allah, I need you. And that scream, it went straight to the arsh throne of the most merciful. That moment wasn't wasted. Even if you felt numb, even if you walked away wondering if it mattered, even if you felt like Allah didn't respond, He did. You just haven't seen the answer yet. Because not all answers come in the form of outcomes. Some come in the form of peace, or strength, or endurance, or clarity that slowly grows inside your heart. And some come in Jannah, as rewards waiting to embrace the one who turned to Allah in sajda when they had nothing left but pain. That moment when your forehead met the earth was the moment Allah lifted you higher than you'll ever know. The tear you cried was caught, recorded, honored, because when you can't speak, but still choose to kneel, that's not nothing. That's intimacy. That's the soul saying, I don't know what to say, but I know who to say it to, and that is enough for Allah. It always has been. So don't be ashamed when you go into sujood and say nothing. Don't feel like your silence makes your prayer weak, because to Allah, that silence might have been your strongest prayer yet. That tear on your prayer mat, that breathless whisper, that stillness in your chest, that was a sign that you were in the presence of the one who hears what you can't even say. And now, you know it. 7. When you survived what should have broken you, that was a hidden miracle. There was a time, maybe not long ago, where you didn't think you'd survive. No one knew. You didn't post about it. You didn't scream. You just disappeared a little. From people, from conversations, from the version of yourself you used to be. You smiled when they asked if you were okay. You nodded when they said, "It'll pass." But deep down, you were drowning. The kind of drowning where no one sees it because you're still standing, still functioning, still doing everything you're supposed to do, except breathing. There were nights your pillow was soaked in tears. There were mornings you didn't want to leave the bed. There were days where just getting through the salah felt like climbing a mountain. You didn't want to die, but you didn't want to live like that either. You felt alone, forgotten, broken in places that even you couldn't fully describe. You whispered to yourself, "This is it. I can't do this anymore. No one understands. No one sees me." But someone did. Allah did. And He didn't shout. He didn't send a lightning bolt. He didn't even speak out loud. He just kept you breathing, quietly, softly, steadily. You didn't even notice it at the time. You were so busy focusing on what was breaking that you didn't see what was being held together. Your heart, it kept beating. Your soul, it kept searching. Your body, it kept moving even when it felt impossible. That wasn't willpower. That wasn't mindset. That wasn't you. That was Him, the Lord of the heavens, keeping you alive while everything inside you was collapsing. Because what should have broken you didn't. That situation, that heartbreak, that betrayal, that loss, that sin, that loneliness, it came for your soul. It came to destroy you. And it failed, because Allah stepped in, without noise, without attention, without asking you for anything in return. He simply said, "Not this servant, not today." And He carried you. He carried you in your sleep. He carried you through the conversations where you were faking a smile. He carried you through the prayer you whispered while choking on tears. He carried you through the days you didn't even want to make dua anymore, but still did, even if it was just, "Ya Allah, help." And you thought, "Maybe I'm weak." But you weren't. You were surviving. You were enduring something so heavy that even if others had faced it, they would have collapsed completely. But you're still here, still breathing, still trying, still searching for meaning. Do you know what that is? That's a miracle, and you didn't even realize it. You thought miracles were parting seas and healing the sick. But the greatest miracle is when your soul was supposed to give up and didn't. When you were at your lowest, but still turned your face to the sky and whispered, "Ya Allah." When you were breaking, but still showed up to Salah even if all you did was cry in sujood. When everything inside you said, "What's the point?" But you kept walking anyway. That's not small. That's not ordinary. That's not survival. That's divine resilience. And Allah gave it to you. Because He knew what you didn't. He saw what you couldn't. He knew the storm would pass. He knew the chapter would end. He knew that the pain that felt like it would define you would eventually refine you. And when you look back now, you still don't know how you got through. That's how you know it wasn't you. It was Him. And maybe you haven't healed fully yet. Maybe you still cry. Maybe the scars still sting. But the fact that you're here, listening to this, still seeking, still caring, still praying, means one thing. You were never abandoned. You were protected, even from what you couldn't handle, even from what you thought would destroy you. And if Allah protected you then, why would He leave you now? If he carried you through the part you thought would end you, why would he stop now that you're stronger? You didn't survive by accident. You didn't survive because you're tough. You survived because Allah was covering you in ways you'll only fully understand in Jannah. And when you get there, you'll remember this. You'll remember the nights you cried, the days you dragged yourself to Salah, the moments you felt invisible, the pain that wrapped itself around your chest. And you'll hear a voice say, "These are the things that earned you this place." The breakdowns, the quiet du'as, the survival. It wasn't pointless. It wasn't punishment. It was the miracle you didn't recognize in the moment. But now, you do. Because what should have broken you became the proof that Allah was never further than a breath away. And the fact that you're here, still holding on, still believing, is not weakness, it's faith. Raw, real, unspoken, unbreakable. That was a sign, and you didn't even know it. 8. The fact you're hearing this now is the clearest sign of all. You've been through too much lately, and not just on the outside. Your soul has been tired, heavier than anyone knows, heavier than even you understand sometimes. You keep moving, keep showing up, keep pretending you're fine, but deep down, there's been a quiet cry. Ya Allah, are you still with me? Do you still hear me? Do you still love me after everything I've done? You've been holding on to memories that hurt, questions that never got answered, sins you wish you could erase, dreams that feel like they died too soon, pain that still follows you like a shadow even in rooms full of people. And some nights, you whisper into the darkness, "Please, just give me a sign, any sign, that you're still here, that you still care." And tonight, this is that sign. This video, this exact moment, these exact words. This was written before you knew it existed. This was destined for your eyes before your soul even whispered for proof. Because Allah heard your dua, even the ones you made without sound, even the ones you couldn't find words for, even the ones buried so deep inside your sadness, you forgot you even made them. He heard, and instead of sending you noise, He sent you a whisper, something soft, something quiet, something just loud enough to reach your soul without overwhelming your mind. This, right here, right now, this is Him saying, "I never left you. You thought your mistakes separated you from His love, but His love was never built on your perfection. It was built on your sincerity. And tonight, you were sincere enough to stay. You could have kept scrolling, could have closed the app, could have drowned the ache in entertainment or distractions, but your soul stayed because it recognized something. It recognized home, not home in the sense of comfort, but home in the sense of truth. Something inside you finally breathed tonight. Something exhaled and said, "This is what I needed." That isn't just emotional coincidence. That's spiritual awakening. That's the kind of moment that angels surround. The kind of moment that's recorded not for views, but for eternity. The kind of moment where your soul finally touches the mercy it's been chasing in silence. And maybe this is your turning point. Not because you're suddenly fixed, not because all your problems are solved, not because your sins disappeared overnight, but because your soul just realized it's still loved. That one realization, it can shift everything. It can turn shame into healing, guilt into guidance, fear into faith. And if Allah brought you to this video, to this lesson, to this voice at this hour, then know this: you were never forgotten. You were never ignored. You were never too far gone. He's been waiting for this moment, waiting for you, not to lecture you, not to punish you, not to overwhelm you, but just to remind you, I see you, I know you, and I still choose you, even with your flaws, even with your regrets, even with the prayers you've delayed, even with the guilt you haven't shared with anyone. He still calls you back, not with force, but with gentle signs like this. This isn't a message. This isn't content. This is divine love, disguised as a video, a spiritual mirror, showing you what your heart was too tired to see on its own. You weren't just watching this. You were led to it, carried, directed, delivered into a space where your soul could finally feel held again. And now, you have a choice. Not a big one, not a dramatic one, but a small one that could change your life forever. Whisper back. That's it. One whisper, one breath, one sujood, one tear. That's all it takes. To reconnect, to return, to restart. You don't have to fix everything tonight. You don't have to become someone new overnight. You just have to believe that the one who sent you this moment still loves you more than you will ever understand. And he's proud of you. Yes, you. The one who almost gave up. The one who fell. The one who's still carrying heartbreak. The one who silently asks for forgiveness in bed with the lights off. He's proud of you. He saw every struggle, every attempt, every time you chose to rise again when no one was watching. And this video, this sacred, quiet night moment, it's not an algorithm. It's not luck. It's a sign, the clearest one yet. And now, you know it. You're not here by accident. You were guided to this moment. Because Allah knew your soul was tired. He knew you were questioning your worth, wondering if He still hears you, wondering if He still cares. And tonight, He answered you. Through silence, through signs, through this very message. So don't walk away from this video thinking it was just a reminder. It was more than that. It was love. It was mercy. It was proof that Allah is still speaking to your heart, even if the world goes quiet. So, breathe. You're still loved. You're still chosen. And no matter how many times you've fallen, Allah hasn't changed how He sees you. He's still calling you back, not because you're perfect, but because you're sincere. And that sincerity is what makes you so beloved to Him. So cry if you need to. Raise your hands again and whisper, Ya Allah, I'm still yours. Because even after everything, you are